There's so much to unpack here. But as I look at everything that has transpired so far, including this call, I can't help but think of a quote that was attributed to Winston Churchill. And he is alleged to have said that Americans can be trusted to do the right thing only after they've exhausted all other possibilities. And I think what's happened here is that clearly President Trump, the rest of his team, indeed is dealing with China on the basis of equality, respect, and mutual benefit, as cited by President Xi in this call. And of course, it got here with a little bit of help from China. And in particular, I'm thinking of the September 3rd military parade, where China showed in broad daylight that it is not only capable of challenging the United States economically and technologically, but even militarily as well. And I think that really drove home the point that the U.S. Really has to recognize reality and treat China as an equal. And from that perspective, I think we can see September as a hinge in history where the direction of China-U.S. relations really is shifting to a much more productive and harmonious path forward.
Andy, let's talk a bit about the TikTok situation as well, because it obviously is getting a lot of attention for good reason. So what do we know about this framework deal that has been struck on this very important app? How important will it be for China to maintain control of the algorithm? And your thoughts on, it appears that the U.S. is going to have perhaps several entities having a significant stake in this.
Well, I think, Sean, the approach the Trump administration has taken in orchestrating this solution certainly is very innovative from a number of perspectives. So I think creating this new entity, bringing in a number of new investors, including the existing investors like Susquehanna, General Atlantic, in this new entity, while the U.S. also is taking a fee like an investment banker for putting the deal together, is certainly very innovative. It has echoes of, I think, what was called Project Texas, where initially, when the U.S. expressed potential national security concerns, which had no evidence, but at least certainly they were worried about the possibility. ByteDance at the time proposed a solution that we see elements of today. And again, at least what's been publicly disclosed is that it meets the requirements of all sides. So the U.S. gets to address its concern about national security. China gets to, well, not gets to, but it has stood up and said, anything that is done with ByteDance and TikTok has to comply with Chinese law, including technology export laws. And TikTok, again, gets to continue doing business in the United States. And millions of creators, American creators, get to continue earning a livelihood on TikTok.
Yeah, I think that's...
So again, I can't... Go ahead, Sean.
I think that's an important point. And also ByteDance, of course, is the parent company. But TikTok, to what degree do you think it's been used as a bargaining chip in broader U.S.-China trade relations? Because at the end of the day, Trump is a businessman. And as you mentioned, 70 million U.S. users of this app, he sees a lot of upside.
Absolutely, Sean. I don't necessarily see it as a bargaining chip per se, but certainly under this basic framework that has been announced through these series of discussions between China and the United States, which I think has been unfortunately distorted by some U.S. media platforms as being a framework about TikTok.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Chinese readout, it's really a basic framework where TikTok is included. But there are investment restrictions by the U.S., other economic and trade issues as well. And I think, the Chinese readout certainly makes more sense to me, given the complexity of the relationship. And as you said, just how important these two countries are to each other and the world as well. So it seems to me that it is a much broader question than just TikTok.
Right, which leads me to my next question. How might this phone call affect things such as tariffs, export controls, trade barriers that are already in place? That obviously just a huge issue, not for these two nations, but for the global economy as well.
Well, Sean, I think certainly, if there are these what I would call tactical resolutions to some of these issues, that would be a positive. But I think that, again, the fundamental issue is the U.S. Belief that it needs to and can maintain superiority over China, which is the impetus for a lot of these actions. And if that, the U.S. recognizes, again, if this is a hinge in history,
Hmm.
that the U.S. recognizes that this is no longer possible, that it must really deal with China as not only as an equal, but perhaps in some areas being more advanced. And we look at electric vehicles, other types of sustainable technology, which Trump, is not a big fan of. But I think, again, sooner or later, reality is going to hit, and the U.S. is going to say, look, everyone around the world can buy sub $20,000 high quality electric vehicles. Why can't Americans? And so I think, again, if we think that this uh, changes, that will ripple through to many things, including tariffs, including investment restrictions, that would make for a much more stable, prosperous relationship that would not only benefit these two countries but the rest of the world.